Hello, my name is Larry. Today I'm going to cover how to understand your keyboard. Keyboards can be intimidating. In America, they commonly have 104 keys. That's a lot to remember on what each one does. But in reality, you don't have to use all of them. Today I'm going to cover some basic shortcuts that we use to make our lives a little easier when it comes to text editing, such as when you're using Notes, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint, and sometimes in other places with websites or other applications. Today, for the basic shortcuts, we are going to be covering Select All, Copy, Paste, Cut, Undo, Redo, Save, and Close Window. There will also be some extra little keys combinations that we can use, such as when you hold down Control and you use the arrow keys, you're able to maneuver through text one word at a time. Unlike when you're not holding down Control and you're using the arrow keys, you will only move one character at a time. While also holding down Control, Shift, and pushing down arrow keys, depending on which ones you press, if you hit the left arrow key, you'll be going back and highlighting whole words. Now, if you only hold down Shift and use the arrow keys, you will be going back one character and highlighting them as well. I didn't put these down on the PowerPoint. However, these are things I will be showing in the tutorials. So let's get right into it and start looking at what each one does. Select All will allow you to select the entire selection inside the document. It's very useful for you to not have to take your mouse and drag it all the way across the window. This one is 2 keys. Make sure for this shortcut and every other shortcut that you follow this rule. You have to hit the Control key first, and while holding it down, you tap the next one. So for instance, with Select All, we would do Control while holding it down and hit A. Now let's see an example. Here we're going to use some lorem ipsum to demonstrate the shortcuts. Now make sure that when you're doing these shortcuts, you're holding down Control and then hitting the key that is after Control. The reason it is useful is due to the fact that if I wanted to highlight this whole text, instead of having to click and hold and drag, instead I could actually just do Control A. It will then highlight all of the text, which is very useful if you're going to copy it and then paste it somewhere. Now, remember that if you are holding down Control A, it'll select everything. However, if you hit A and then Control, it's actually going to print out a whole bunch of A's until you hit Control. The reason being is because you have to hit Control first, hold it down, and then hit A. Make sure if you want to deselect everything, just to click out, it'll fix it. Now, to easily delete a word, just hold Control and hit space. It's a very resourceful thing. I didn't cover it in the PowerPoint. However, you may be seeing me use it while showing you the shortcuts. Next, we have Copy. This is very useful if you have an assortment of text that is selected and you wanted to copy it and put it somewhere else. What you would do is you would hold Control and hit C. And that will copy it to what's known as your clipboard. This is a virtual clipboard, so you won't physically see it, and you won't ever actually know what's on it until later with the next shortcut. Next, we have Copy. So let's go ahead and highlight a paragraph. Now hold down Control and hit C. This shortcut is known as Paste. Again, you hit Control and V, and that will paste the selection that you have copied previously. Now, it won't paste anything if it doesn't have anything. So for instance, if you turned your computer off and then turned it back on, that clipboard will be wiped. There's reasons behind this, but let's just leave it at it won't have anything if you've shut your computer down and then turned it back on. So let's see an example. And then we can go to the next line and we can do Control V, which is our next shortcut, and that will paste everything that we just highlighted. Now, due to the fact that I am using Latin here, it's not going to understand these words, so I'm going to get all of these red lines. Next, we have Cut. I love this one. It's very useful. What you do is you have a selection, and then you'll hit Control and X. It will actually remove that selection, but it is also copying that selection. So you can paste it somewhere else. Due to the fact that you might have repetitive sentences, you would actually use Control C. But if you have a sentence that specifically you only want to state once, you would do Control X and move it to the location you wanted, and then use Paste, which was previously covered, which is Control V, and that will paste the cut selection. Let's see an example. So now that we showed the copy and paste, now let's look at cut. So for instance, let's select this whole paragraph again. There's a couple easy ways to do this. For instance, I can click and drag, or I could actually do, holding down Shift, I can use the arrow keys to move and highlight however much I want. Or I could hold down Control and Shift and use the arrow keys again, and this will select every word. Even better, if I hold Control and Shift, I then can hit the up arrow key and it will select the whole paragraph. I do that again and it will select every paragraph. I can hit the down arrow key and it will do the same thing, but it will deselect it. Now the reason it's doing this is due to the fact that I'm holding Control. That's allowing it to select the whole thing. If I held Shift only and did the arrow keys, it's just going to go up by one line, or it will go up to the left, right, or down by one. Control allows it to go to a whole section or a whole word. So let's do the whole section. Control X, that'll be our cut. And now that same paragraph that we just removed is in our clipboard, and we can use Control V and it will paste that same thing that we just used cut on. Next we have undo. Undo is amazing. It saved me on so many assignments, on projects, due to the fact that I'll delete something and I'm like, oh no, I need that back. So let's say you deleted a couple letters or you type something that you don't want. You would hold Control and hit Z, and that will remove the most recent thing you've done. Now, depending on the program, you can undo almost everything. However, if you've recently opened a saved document, it will only undo everything up to the original point of that document. Here are some examples. Next, we have undo. Undo is a very amazing thing. For instance, let's say I didn't want to paste this. I could take the effort to highlight it and do backspace to remove it. But let's say I did that and I wanted it back. Control Z, that will bring back what I just removed. Now if I hit Control Z again, it will remove it due to the fact that I actually didn't have it existing then. I hit it one more time, it'll bring it back. One more time, takes it away. And then it will actually take away the line that I entered into this. And then I can actually bring back the A. Now this document, I actually have opened it up with the lorem ipsum inside of it. So if I do it again, I've removed everything that has been in this. Now you're seeing all these red lines pop up. That's actually due to the fact that I have changed this document not to notice the current existing errors. Next, we have redo. This one's really useful if you use the undo key. Let's say, for instance, you undid something, but you didn't actually want to undo it. Make sure you immediately do redo. The reason being is because if you undo something and then you try to hit another key, let's say, for instance, you undid one letter, you type, and then you are like, oh no, I want that letter back, or that word back, or sentence. If you try to hit the redo, it won't bring it back. You've already gone past the point of no return for that instance. It happens. Just be careful. Let's see an example of this. Next, we have the redo, which is Control and Y. Control and Y is a very useful thing. With redo, I just actually showed an example here, due to the fact that I actually took away some of the spelling errors that were showing. That is, I showed them because I was doing undo. So I undid my ignore spelling errors. So then I did Control Y and then actually redid the ignore. So then I do Control Y again, and so now we don't see any spelling errors. Let's do Control Y again, and it's going to bring back all of the A's I just deleted. And then we do it again, it's going to add an A, and do it again, it removes it. Do it again, they're back, again, removes. Now it's going to add in the line, and it adds in the whole paragraph that we deleted. And you can hold it down, and it will actually do everything until the very last step. Now, remember, you have to be careful with this, due to the fact that if you did something, such as, let's say, I undid, and I brought this back. Now, we know that if I did Control Y, it will remove it. But let's go back a step, and let's just say I decided to type something. So I typed out something. Now I was like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. I want to remove this. If I did Control Z, it will remove what I typed. If I did Control Y, it will actually re-put it in. But I can't remove the section. This is something you do have to be careful with. Now, thankfully, with this section, I've actually already inserted it. So if I do Control Z, it will remove it. But if you have some sort of change that you have in between an undo and a redo that you do, I will lose that information if you do an action in between. But it's very uncommon to happen, and most of the time, it's not even that big.
Next, we have save. When you're working on a document, they usually do tend to do an automatic save. Every Microsoft program, such as Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, they all tend to have an automatic save. But they're not consistently saving every moment. So let's say you've made some good progress. Just hit Control S on a document, and it will save it. Here's an example.
Now that we've shown select all, copy, paste, cut, undo, redo, now let's say we are done with our document. For instance, this document, right up here, you can actually see the title of my document, which is Lorem Ipsum. Now, there is no point here that says if it's saved or not. If I do Control S, I just saved it to my PC. So this actually warns you or informs you that this document is currently updated. This document has been saved to the location that it is inside of my computer. Now, this is the same thing as going to File and hitting Save. So, the one thing, if you have a new document and you hit Save, it should allow you to do Save As. The Save As will only be done once, and that's if it's a brand new document. If you need to move it to a new location, you can actually physically move that. But for the purposes of as you are working on your thing, let's say for instance I've added new paragraphs, I want to make sure that I save my document as I go. Now, of course, again, like I said, this is going to show a lot of spelling errors because it's Latin.
This will close the currently selected window. In order to do this, you would have to hit Alt F4. This is used universal on the Windows computer. It will close any selected window, so make sure the window that you are trying to close is the one that you are on. Here's an example of this.
The most useful thing, if there is a problem, is known as Close Window. Close Window was Alt F4. Now, before I actually do execute this, and if you are going to test this yourself, please do be aware that you need to make sure to save your document before you use this key. Now, you shouldn't usually use this key combination or shortcut when you are working on something or just as a normal way of closing windows. It's just a way of doing it in case something is not working. I'll attach a little situation where I've experienced a crash while I was working on some videos. I will be using the task manager when I show this, but for the purposes of right now, I'll be showing you how the close window will work. So when you close a window, normally you would go up to the top right and you would hit the close or X. However, if there is a program that has crashed or having a problem, you can't actually hit that due to the fact that it's not responding and understanding any inputs. So you would hold down Alt and F4. Remember, do not press this while you're watching the video. So here it is in action. I haven't saved this document, so Microsoft Word is going to request that I save it due to the fact that I am trying to cancel or close out this window. I hit cancel, so it's not going to close it for me. Again, if I hit the X, same instance is going to occur. It's the exact same thing, so it can be used when a program is not responding.
Next, we have caps lock and num lock. Let's say you're typing on the keyboard and all of a sudden everything is just coming up in uppercase. This is known as caps lock. It happens. It's just saying capitals are locked into place, so you're always going to get capitals. That's okay. All you have to do is just hit caps lock and it will remove that from happening. Next, we also have num lock. Num lock is the same thing as number lock, which allows you to use the numpad. Numpad is great. It's very simple to use that to type in some numbers, but you have to have numlock on in order to actually use it. Your keyboards will usually indicate if these locks are activated. Caps lock will keep the uppercases going. Numlock will allow you to actually use the numpad. If you look at the far right corner of the keyboard, you'll see that's where the number pad is, or numpad. It's very useful. I use it on a day-to-day basis. Again, numlock is the one that is labeled as num. My keyboard has it numlock, and your keyboard might have it labeled numlock or num as well. Just make sure to have that on, which if you look above that keyboard, it does show some indicators with the little black circles. Those black circles will actually light up, letting you know if it was activated. Numlock is the very first circle. If it's lit up, it will be able to show you that it's working. Some computers don't have an indicator if the numlock is on. So the only way you'll be able to test if it's on is by trying to use the number pad. And if it doesn't type out, then make sure to hit the numlock and then try to type again. And that'll make it work. Next, we have function keys. Now, function keys, there's a lot to them. Now, when it comes to certain applications, you could use number keys. I know when you're on websites, such as if you're using a browser like Chrome, you can actually do some interesting things with them. Don't really worry about using these too much due to the fact that we're only using the F4 for closing a specific window. Everything else, like I said, they do a lot. I think there's over 50 different things that you can do with all 12. It's fun to look into, but it's a little bit more advanced information. I don't even know what every single one of them do. Lastly, we have Control-Alt-Delete. Control-Alt-Delete is known as a last resort situation if your computer is having some problems. Let's say, for instance, your computer's locked up and you can't do anything. If Alt F4 is not closing the specific window that you're trying to use, then that does mean that your computer might have crashed. There's a couple ways of going around this, but one way is Control-Alt-Delete. They're also known as security keys. Due to the nature of this, I'm not able to record my software to show you exactly how it gets pulled up. So the next slide is actually going to show you what you might see on Windows 10. Here is the selection. You will be able to lock your computer, you can switch to user, you can sign out, you can change a password, you can go to Task Manager, or if you look at the bottom right, you also have a couple more things you can do. The one I have selected is allowing you to shut down your computer. I would highly recommend trying to do this if your computer is being unresponsive, but it is responding to Control-Alt-Delete. If your computer is not responding, you could also hold down the power button and it will shut your computer off. Once that has been done, power cycle it back on with that power button, and you should be good to go. If you had anything open, like Microsoft Word or any sort of document that you're editing, there is a slight chance you might have lost the information that you put in. So be careful. Next thing you can do when you use Control-Alt-Delete is access the Task Manager. Task Manager allows you to stop some programs that are not responding or stop a program that might be hiding. That's a little in depth due to the nature of what Task Manager will show you. So I'm not saying be afraid of this or it's scary, but Task Manager does show you everything that is running on your computer at that time. It's very useful if you have a program that's not responding and Alt F4 is not working on closing it. So this could be a way that you can actually do it as well.
Here is an excellent example of a program crashing. I'm currently working on a video for the Senior Source Elder Financial Safety Center. This is going to be covering phishing Now, I can't do anything in the program. If you look, it shows that it's not responding. I have this wheel on my mouse that's basically just saying it's trying to load. I currently know it is crashed. Now, there's a couple alternatives that I could do to stop the program. However, I'm going to show you the way with Task Manager. Again, this is a little bit more advanced, so don't worry about doing this. This way will show you a lot more information. So I'm going to do Control Shift Escape. It immediately pulls up my task manager and it shows everything that's currently running. These apps that are right here are the ones that are running in current Windows. Everything with background processes, this is everything that's running on your computer. We're going to try to stay away from that. This is just the area you want to focus on. Once you find your program that's crashed, you just click on it and you hit End Task. Now, my desktop is cluttered with information, so I'm gonna basically make it a black screen once it ends, but that's what'll happen. Now I don't have to worry about that program anymore. One last thing that you can do to actually pull up Task Manager is Control Shift Escape. It's very useful to be able to access the Task Manager without having to use the security keys. Maybe you don't need to see that whole pop-up. So this would be the simple way to accessing the Task Manager. Again, I don't really see you needing to access the Task Manager, but these are ways that will allow you to work with tech support or someone that might be helping you over the phone when it comes to some problems. Thank you for watching Understanding Your Keyboard. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact Kim Markman at the Senior Sources Elder Financial Safety Center.